The pain of not being your full self will always be greater than the pain of rejection. And you have to really understand that there is a very, very, very serious price that you pay when you try to be everything for everybody else and you keep your true self hidden. That price will literally be reflected in all aspects of your life. This is down to who you're in relationships with, what your friendships look like, what your career choices look like. If you're someone who's an entrepreneur and you're denying your truth in any way, shape, or form, your money is going to be greatly affected. And even if you're not an entrepreneur and you're just trying to make it in this world in whatever shape, whatever way, if you are hiding any part of yourself, even if you think you're hiding something small, it inevitably will literally spill on over to so many other parts of your life, because that shadow of shame, when it has its hold on you, and when you put a little piece of yourself behind that shadow of shame, what ends up happening is that it becomes more and more comfortable. See, negative belief systems work on a reward system. And so the negative beliefs that you may hold, like, oh, I can't show people this, or I can't show people that I'm that because I'm gonna, not be safe. And so it's safer for me to hide and shame. It is safer for me to hide these parts of myself. That reward system doesn't just apply to one aspect of yourself. When you adopt that reward system, it can so very easily be applied to all these other areas of your life, whether you know it or not. And soon enough, you'll find yourself completely being a shell of who you actually are. And so today I want to talk about a lot of things that I wish I knew when I was 25, 26, 27. And a lot of things that I wish I knew really throughout my entire life. And I wish I can tell my younger self this, and also I'm telling you this in case you need to hear it. This is going to be about a lot of things. It's going to be about sexuality. It's going to be about spirituality. It's going to be about a lot of these different aspects of ourselves that we kind of put behind this wall and this shadow of shame because we think that it's easier to not tell the truth. Anytime that you're lying, there will always be a price to pay. And so today I want to talk about authenticity and truth and living in your truth and what that really means. And so if this is the first time that you're meeting me, hi, my name is Ifákóredé, and what I really am helping you do right now is turn your inner demons into deities. And what that really means is taking away that wall of shame and embracing the things that we have really villainized or shamed ourselves for. And a little bit about my background. For you guys who have already been on my channel, then you already know a little bit about my story. Growing up with interracial parents, a black dad, a white mom, having a lot of crazy shit happen when I was a child, and then being a very spiritually practicing Ifa in tune person who is also queer, there's a whole bunch of different layers of coming out that I've done throughout my life. And we have to really understand, it's something that I really need to understand years and years and years ago when this process kind of started for me, is that it's a lot harder to lie. And when you come out in whatever capacity, maybe you clicked on this because you're coming out with your sexuality as someone who's gay, welcome to the fucking club. But if you're coming out with your sexuality or you're coming out with your spirituality, whatever the case is, I want to tell you that that thing that you're the most scared of, whether it's being disowned or, people in your family disapproving of you or whatever the case is, the thing that you're the most scared of, there's a life on the other side of that. There's a life on the other side of what you're the most scared of. And I just want you to really understand that every time that you are inauthentic, you're literally killing a piece of yourself. You're literally killing a piece of yourself. And that inauthenticity is just gonna brew and brew and brew until, again, you have this whole big mask over your life. And maybe you don't see it that way right now, because maybe on the internet or maybe in your friend group or maybe when you're, alone in your own apartment, if you haven't realized this already, this is a grown folks conversation. So, this may be a different conversation for you if you're still living with your parents and X, Y, and Z. But for those of you guys who are of this age range that I'm in and, who are on their own independent in a lot of different ways, maybe you don't think that it's hiding because, your whole life that you live is outside of your family is queer or is deeply spiritual or is whatever the case is. And I want you to understand that little shadow, that little pocket of shame that you carry around with you that really presses you out and really tells you to lie when you're with your family, that is eating away at you more than you realize. And the moment that you can just say yes to all possibilities of what may happen. I may get disowned. I may not be accepted. I may be whatever the case is. And then realize that you still have power and control over your life. And if you keep walking around with that shame and not being honest and truthful about who you are, it'll feel like the biggest burden on your back. It will feel like the biggest burden on your back, I promise you. And regardless of what will happen after you have that conversation, the best thing that happens in that moment is that you take your power back. Because all that's really happening when you lie or when you're not really yourself, all that's really happening is that your value system is really centered around other people's approval. And it's really centered around what other people think of you and how much other people celebrate you. But do you really want people to celebrate you if the you that they're celebrating is not really in alignment with you? You have to realize that when you decide to just bare your heart and be authentic and be really truthful about, again, sexuality, spirituality, whatever the case is, then you are taking back the power. And the more that you keep hiding this, the more that you are giving your power away to that person or that situation that you're so scared of judging you. But we have to realize a couple things. And I want to actually say this specifically for people who are gay or queer, who may be kind of like feeling like there's something wrong with you. I know I've had a lot of clients who've come through my challenges and my programs who have talked about this. We've had so many deep conversations in like office hours and things like that about this topic specifically. But I want to tell you that there's no rule book. There's no rule book. There's no rule book. I know that you're like, okay, well, the Bible or we're this or that. Babe, these are all written by humans. These are all written by humans. And if there was only one way to live, then humanity itself would be more of a monolith than it even is right now. And we have to understand that there is no thing that is right and there is no thing that is wrong. When we're talking about ways of expressing ourselves, we have to understand that there is only what is right for you and there is only what is wrong for you. And if you are the type of person, if you know deep down in your heart, if you've done that work, if you've gone within and you've been like, okay, like I'm tired of pretending to be X, Y, and Z, I'm just going to fully embrace who I actually am. You have to realize that that is your truth. And beyond that being your truth, because I know you've heard that before, beyond this concept of it being your truth, this is what is right for you. I need you to kind of repeat that to yourself, because I know, again, so many people kind of grapple, if they're gay or if they're queer, they kind of grapple with this whole thing of something's wrong with me. No, your truth is right for you. Say that with me. My truth is right for me. I find it to be so funny that we think that this amazing and unlimited energy that is source, that is God, when you really know God, when you've really had a deep connection with God, you know God is vastness. It is when you have a deep relationship with source and you get a taste of that, when you're in deep communication with source, you get a taste of that feeling of complete unlimitedness. This force of creation, this source does not have a rule book on what its creations can and can't be. There's no rule book. There's only what is right for you. So you have to understand that there is no need. You can give yourself a moment to just put down that shame. Put down that shame that's telling you that there must be something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And similarly, when we look at spirituality and when we look at the shadow, when we look at all these other parts of ourselves as well, we have to realize that whatever path that you choose in spirituality, as long as you are choosing it from a grounded space, as long as you are choosing it from a space of this feels in alignment with me, that is the right path for you. There is no wrong path of how to get closer to God, of how to get closer to the divine, of how to get really back in alignment with source. There's no path that is the one way that is right for everybody. And so you have to really, really, really understand that beyond it being your truth, it is what is right for you. And if you know that just some things that you've tried, they just have not worked out, it feels like you're going back even more into the shame bubble. It feels like you're going back even more and reverting into yourself and just living in that shadow. Then you have to understand that that's just not for you. And trying to keep up that facade is just gonna kill you from the inside out. It's gonna literally erode at your own ashe. And then one day you'll wake up and you might be really fucking mad. Like you might get really angry about all the times that you've hid yourself. But you can choose this holiday season, you can choose right now to be the moment that you kind of step into your own totality, into the totality of your own truth. You can choose right now to be this moment. You can choose right now to be the moment. Whatever expression of yourself that you choose to really adopt, as long as it feels fully in alignment with you, there's nothing wrong with it, because there's no limits on how creation can express itself. And there's no rule book that says one thing is right or wrong. And I want to tell you something as well. When people judge you, they're only judging you to the extent that they judge themselves. And so the parts of themselves that they don't allow themselves to explore, they don't allow themselves to even see, they don't allow themselves to dive into, those same parts of themselves that they're shunning and shaming themselves for are the same parts that they want you to feel bad about as well. This is a shame game. There's no such thing as this is right and this is wrong. It's only what I want you to think is right and what I want you to think is wrong. That's the only game that people are playing. And so judgment is an attempt to throw the shame that people feel within. It's an attempt to throw that back at you. It's an attempt, I want you to feel like how I feel. I want you to feel like you can't do this because I feel like I can't do this either. And the audacity that you step into when you decide that you're no longer gonna keep throwing this dodgeball back and forth, the audacity to say yes to yourself, the audacity to be fully in your truth. There is just such a deep wave of relief. There is such a deep wave of liberation. There is such a deep wave of, even if the person in front of you doesn't want to see you, you've finally bared your heart that it's in the light. And it feels lighter because it's in the light. And there's something that's on the other side of that. And sometimes it can involve acceptance and you don't even know. You didn't even realize, damn, like maybe my family doesn't hate me if I'm gay. Maybe my family doesn't hate me if I'm, spiritual, whatever the case is. On the other side of that, sometimes there is acceptance. But that's the funny thing about shame is shame will try to convince you over and over and over again that the worst possible scenario is on the other side of what you're scared of admitting to yourself. The worst possible scenario is on the other side of what you're scared of being seen out in the light. For me, it was my sexuality, but then also for me, it was definitely my story, definitely my rest, definitely all that kind of stuff. I've talked about that in depth now. But you have to realize that when you claim your story, when you claim your truth, when you claim what you know is right for you, there's no one who can use it against you. And the only way that people can use things against you is if you resonate with the shame that they're trying to throw at you. But if you know deep down in your spirit that the shame is not yours and that you just don't have any capacity, you don't have any space to carry that shit anymore, then it's just kind of like, you throw the shit at me, what am I supposed to, what do you expect me to do with it? I don't know what to do with it. It's like fucking someone throwing me a guitar. I don't know how to play the fucking guitar. What do you want me to do with this? I don't know how to do it. And it's like the shame game is like when someone throws you a fucking guitar and it's like you're holding it and you're like trying to play it and they know how to play it because they've spent so much time shaming themselves for their entire lives that they're like, yeah, play this song. And the shame game is like you trying to figure out that same song that you're playing, but when you unload that shame, it's kind of realizing like that's not my fucking song. That's not my song. That's not my shit. That's not my shit. There's nothing There is nothing that someone can hold over you. There's absolutely nothing that anyone can hold over you. The only time that someone else can hold something over you is when you hold it over yourself, when you still feel that shame. But part of the way that we get comfortable with coming out the closet, part of the way that we get comfortable with being our full selves is, to be honest, getting to know God. Getting to know Source. When you get to know Source without a middleman, without something else in between you and Source, when you get to know Source without the barrier, you sit with creation in its totality. And it doesn't mean you gotta go to Mount Shasta right now. Right? No, that's not what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean you gotta go to India right now. No. It means that when you sit down and you're like, okay, I wanna unload this shame. I wanna come back into myself. And so what unloading that shame looks like is getting to know Source, getting to know God. And when you just allow yourself to say, how can I get closer to creation today? Maybe that's through being with animals, being with plants. Maybe that's just that moment that the fucking wind hits your face. Maybe you're sitting on Central Park bench and you're just allowing the wind to hit your face for just a moment here. Maybe it's being around children. Maybe it's just allowing yourself to be for a moment. Maybe it's getting into your body. Maybe it's feeling all the things within your body and just reflecting, oh my gosh, what is here? What is beneath the surface? What am I feeling? Who am I? How has who I've become just been a part of this intricate web of creation? What are the things that I'm grateful for within myself? What are the things that I've created? When you just allow yourself to be present with creation in itself, then you get to know what the divine really is. And when you honor those parts of yourself that you have shamed, it becomes easier and easier for you to come into a space of full acceptance. And I think a lot of times in spirituality, we do this thing where we shame the tool, organized religion, this, that, and the third. And yes, 100%, there's a lot of flaws in a lot of these tools, right? A hammer can't do a sword's job. Like, you could always find a flaw in something, but you could always find the beauty in something. And it doesn't matter what we're looking at, right? But we have to realize that we are the architects of our reality. We are the ones who are creating from these tools. And so anytime that someone tries to throw something at you, you have to realize that it may be right for them, and it may, maybe it's not, child, because they're still living in shame. But it's just kind of like when we go to these family functions, and then when people try to throw things at us or make us be certain ways, or, make us fit into their boxes or whatever the case is, we kind of just have to realize that their box is a tool for them, and maybe it works for them, but it doesn't work for me. And I don't have to villainize someone else's perspective, but I can have a moment of authenticity. And those moments of authenticity are bridges for heart connection. And when you really allow yourself to be seen and really bear it all and just really be in your truth, what ends up happening is that there is a new level of rawness, a new level of truth that these conversations reach. There's a new level of presence that comes into the room, and people are able to see you for who you are, and you are able to see people for who they are as well. And again, when you've gotten closer and closer to creation itself, and when you realize that in no part of this creative force is there room for shame, and no part in this creative force is there room for wrong, then you just start to accept it. And if you're having a hard time with authenticity and you think it's safer for you to be someone or something else, I want you to ask yourself, are you present? Are you present with your friends 100%? I know I fucking wasn't, right? If you're a people pleaser, your friends, your family, they only know that version of you. They don't know you. You're not fully present. You're hiding. If you're not fully present when it comes to your creativity, when it comes to what you're expressing in this world, when it comes to even how you dress or how you do your hair, whatever the case is, these are all just like different fun forms of expression, right? When you're not fully present with that and you're not really expressing yourself, you're hiding. You're hiding. And while there are certain parts of this world where it's necessary for you to hide certain aspects of yourself for you to literally still be here, but for those of us who have a choice, we have to be brave. For those of us who have a choice, and most of you who are watching right now, you have a choice. For those of us who have a choice, you have to decide to be brave, not just for yourself, but for all the people who may resonate with you. You have to choose to be brave for all the people who can't live in their truth. It's not worth it. You have to realize that it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth that hollow feeling that you get when you're pretending to be something else, someone else. It's not worth it. And you ignoring your authenticity is just going to breed resentment. It's just going to breed wrath. It's just going to breed anger. It's just going to sink you deeper and deeper into a hole that just feels terrible until you just feel like you're just in a cage. The last thing that I want to say is that if you're afraid of rejection, you need to find as many situations as possible that you possibly can find to be rejected. You need to find, if you're scared of failing, you need to find as many ways as possible to fail as many times as you possibly can. If you're scared of people's disapproval, you need to find as many ways to be as authentic as humanly possible. Why? Because anxiety works like building a wall. The thing that's on the other side of the wall, the actual act of being rejected, the actual act of failing is on the other side of the wall, right? But our anxiety, when we keep playing that shame game, or when we keep hiding, every time we put another brick on the wall of anxiety, every time we put another brick on the wall of shame, it just makes it seem bigger and bigger and bigger, because it's like, holy shit, like there's this huge ass thing from all the times that I've avoided telling my truth, all the times I've avoided being myself. There's this huge wall. But the moment that you just decide to find more ways to chip at that wall, and that's gonna be failing, that's going to be finding ways to be rejected, it's going to be finding ways to fail, right? The more times that you chip at that wall, the smaller and smaller that thing on the other side gets. You realize that life goes on. You realize that you don't have to keep avoiding this thing because it's really not that bad. It really doesn't hurt that much. It really doesn't. It's not as vast and crazy as you think that it will be. So it's so much easier. It's so much easier to be honest about your spirituality. It's so much easier to be honest about your sexuality. It's so much easier to just be yourself, because I promise it will eat away at you if you're not. So I just wanted to tell you this, heart to heart. I hope this gave you something today. You guys already know that Genesis is enrolling right now. It's a 7-week initiation into erotic authenticity and shadow integration to say goodbye to shame for good. And the link is below. But other than that, I love you guys so much, and see you soon. Adabo.